under the provisions of the open meeting law, just to let folks know who is appearing in this meeting. We may or may not have anybody participate on public participation, but that link is available online to anyone who wanted to call in. So today with me, I'm Bev Griffin-Dunn. I'm the chair of the Welch School Building Committee. Right now we have Dr. Josh Vandala, our superintendent, Dr. Chris Lord, our assistant superintendent, the staff of the Doran Whittier and Danisco Design Corporations, and I will go through those names as well. We have Beth McGivern, Ed Colbert, Dan Doucette, Jim Hafey, Jared Hockman, Jen Dort, Michelle Massa, Pete McGinn, and we have Vivian Lowe, Donna Danisco. Let me see. Mike Burton, Christina Delangelo, Jeff Oxalita, and Rachel Donner. Did I leave anyone out? If I did, I apologize. Oh, let's see. Mike Cox and anyone else on here? Okay, so right now that's who's in attendance. Okay, first item on the agenda, I'm going to turn this over. Well, first we'll have any previous topics and approval of the December 10th meeting minutes. All right. And everyone had received these earlier. And can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
A motion to approve.
Thank you, Mrs. McGivern. Motion made by Beth. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ed Colbert. Thank you, Ed. Okay. Is there any discussion or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote to approve the minutes of the December 10th meeting. So I'm going to go through the members who have the voting rights. Okay. Let's see. Dr. Vandala?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Hafey?
Yes.
Mr. McGinn?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Massa?
Yes.
Mr. Colbert?
Yes.
Mrs. McGivern?
Yes.
And let's see. Did I miss anybody else on there for voting? Oh, and Ms. Dort, I know you're here, but we haven't received approval yet. So you will become a voting member, but at the moment you're not. I'm sorry. Okay. So the motion carries. Now I'm going to turn this over to Christina and Mike, and we'll proceed through today's agenda, which would be a PDP update.
Right. Well, thanks for having us here today. We hope everybody had a good holiday and Happy New Year. It's been about a month since we had an opportunity to speak with you, and so we wanted to provide a little bit of an update as to, where we were and where we're going. So with that, why don't we just go to the next slide and let's talk about some of the dates that we have coming up before us. So Christina, take it away.
Yeah, so as you know, back in December, we submitted our PDP submission on December 16th. And we met with you on obviously December 10th to approve that PDP submission. We're still waiting on our formal review comments from MSBA at the moment. I know that everyone's busy from the holidays and they have an upcoming board meeting in February that they're also focusing on. So we do anticipate we will be receiving those review comments, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And once we do get that, we'll make sure we share that information with the full SBC. So just some upcoming meetings and dates that we wanted to make sure that this group was aware of and that we will also be sending out an updated calendar so that you're aware of that as well. We scheduled a facilities working group meeting today with Mr. Hafey following this meeting. And then we also scheduled a technology working group meeting on Friday with Dr. Vandala, as well as Chris Mitchell with the technology department, with the school department. And then we have an executive working group meeting scheduled for January 22nd, where we'll further talk about some of the budgetary items regarding some of the options that we're going to be reviewing with you today. And then we will be scheduling an SBC meeting for February 4th. So we'll make sure we send out a calendar invite for that, so that way it's on your schedule, so that you're aware of that meeting. We do want to schedule a community meeting number 2 for sometime in the week of February 8th. We'll be working with the mayor and Dr. Vandala and this group just to ensure what specific date that week would work best for everyone. I know that you're coordinating along with school committee and any other important meetings, city council meetings, et cetera. So we'll come up with a specific date for that community meeting, and we'll make sure we send out that information to the full SBC, so that way you can attend and participate. We'll also want to make sure that we send out those flyers that we had sent for our community meeting number 1, and also broadcast it the same way that we did for the first community meeting, as far as sending out that notification from the school department, and then Michelle sending out those notifications with the students when school right now, to the parents and the guardians as well. Then we're going to ask to meet with you also on February 18th to approve our preferred schematic report. And so that's kind of the next step that we're talking about with you today. We're going to give you a recap of where we were back in December with our PDP submission, as far as how we looked at all the different options. And so our ultimate goal for PSR is to select a preferred schematic option, right? And so that's our goal for our next process in February. And so that's what we're going to be coming to you on the 18th, is for approval of that preferred option, so that way we can submit that information then to the MSBA. Following February 24th, we're earmarking March 10th or the 24th for our facilities assessment subcommittee meeting. And so we'll be communicating with the MSBA after our PSR submission to ultimately define which date, which meeting we will fall into, depending upon what other projects they have in the pipeline, and working with their schedule as well. And then ultimately, following that facilities meeting is then April 14th, the board of directors meeting to begin schematic design. So these are kind of our milestone dates that we wanted to make sure that this group is aware of. And we'll make sure we'll send out meeting invites for the upcoming meetings so that you're aware of it. And we'll also send out a calendar, so that way you can have a couple different views, so you're just aware of our upcoming schedule. Does anyone have any questions about some of these dates, or just anything that I just talked about?
Actually,
February 18th is in the middle of February vacation, just so you know.
Okay. Will you or Jen be available for that meeting, or just based off of vacation? Basically for this SBC group, is everyone, think that they'll be available on the 18th for an SBC meeting, or should we just coordinate around February vacation for Massachusetts?
Yeah, Christina, if I could just interject, Michelle, as Christina was saying, we have our goal, we have to submit by February 24th. So we were just picking the Thursday closest to that. So if there are any adjustments that need to be made before we submit it, but we could do it the following week if it doesn't have to be on a Thursday, if that's more convenient to you guys.
Yeah, I was just going to say we could meet on like a Monday before the 24th if we wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe perhaps Monday or Tuesday, because if folks are just getting back from vacation, Monday might be a little stacked up. How do people feel about the Tuesday? What's that, the 23rd?
Yeah, that's the 23rd.
So that just doesn't give us much time if we need to make any adjustments, that's all.
Right.
I would say if anyone if anyone would not be available on the 18th, if you could email us and let us know so we could make a decision as to how many people will be able to attend. And I'm saying you can send an email either way, but if you're definitely not going to be available on the 18th, if you could let us know so that we could make a decision, and we'll send those right away. That might be easier because normally I would say, oh, on a school vacation, people are kind of locked into being able to go away that week. But currently, we're doing things remotely, and we're all supposed to be, chained to our houses. So this may be a bit of a different year as far as planning. In a normal year, we would try to avoid a school vacation with anything to do with schools. But just let us know, and we'll figure that out. It may work. That date may work, and I think if people can make it work, it would be better because it gives the Doran Whittier and Danisco staff the time to prepare things that they have to submit. It's simple for us out here. We just take a vote. There's a lot of paperwork, even just behind a vote. And you never know. We could have a blizzard. Could have a pandemic. You never know what could happen. It's 2021.
So how about this, Bev? So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and send out an availability kind of email to everybody on the committee.
Good.
If we have a quorum, we'll hold that date. And if we do not, we'll look at Monday or Tuesday as a backup.
Right. That would be great. Thank you. And
Okay.
I do want to let everyone know, Mayor Betancourt, thanks. The mayor's here too. So we've got a full slate this morning. We're doing well.
Okay. All right. So that's the dates. So next slide, I believe, just to sort of remind everybody. So as everybody knows, we have submitted the PDP, and in the PDP, we are required to study a repair, a reno, an add reno, and a new construction project, which we have done. Working with the executive committee, we believe that the new school and an add reno is not really within the financial capacity of the city at this point. So what we've been doing is we've been focusing our efforts mostly on the repair and the renovations. And so with that, I know that we have shared some numbers with you before. If you go to the next slide, Christina, we're going to show this slide to you now in the beginning to sort of remind people where we were in terms of cost. And then we're going to go through the details of everything that's in these options. And then we're going to show you this slide again. So we will come back to this, but just explaining the sheet here, the blue section up top, that essentially represents construction costs. That's the physical cost for the construction. In the middle, there's soft cost, which is sort of that orangish color. Soft costs mean, architect, OPM, legal, anything outside of what will essentially be our GMP, our guaranteed maximum price. And then there's a total project budget right there in the middle. And so right here, we're ranging from 23.2 up to 28, and that's total project cost. But again, this is an MSBA project, and so you will receive reimbursement on that. And the section below that kind of walks you through the reimbursement portions. And so just so everybody understands, the base reimbursement that the MSBA has agreed to is 54%. I think it's a fraction over that, but 54%. And then based on the option that you choose, you get a variation between 0 and 5% for renovation. And so as you can see, a repair, our code is essentially, it's exactly that. It's a repair only. It's fixing the MEP systems and not much else. And so because it's a repair, you wouldn't get that full 5%. And in the R1s, these are more of a renovation option. And we do believe that we can get at least 4.5% based on those particular options. And again, we're going to walk you through the scope and help you understand why we think that. And then maintenance. Oh, do you have a quick? point, Donna?
Like, yeah, I just wanted to state that the reason why it's not a full 5% is we do have a very minor 300 square foot addition to the front. And so that's why you wouldn't receive the full 5%.
Yep. And then the maintenance, we use the percent that the Higgins project received. This is based on the maintenance program. The MSBA wants to know, once you're done with the project, how are you going to maintain it and make sure it gets to the end of its useful life. And then there's green. And so typically you can get up to 2% for green. It is a little bit challenging to get that in a repair and renovation. We are having discussions with the MSBA and Donna's consultants to see if there is an opportunity to receive that, which I think there might be. And so in the far column all the way on the right, you will see that in that particular option, we're just showing you what the 2% would mean in terms of the bottom line. And so the gray at the bottom, or second one up from the bottom, those are ineligible costs. And so there are certain items that would be ineligible, and I can walk you through the detail of that. But you know, one example would be modulars. And so I think we've been talking with this group about swing space and modulars and so forth. And so in the first two options, the R codes, we're leaving in what we assume would be the value for modular construction for a 2-year construction project at around $1.9 million. Now, nobody likes modulars. They're non-reimbursable. It's 100% paid for by the city. And so working with the executive working group, we've started to talk about what if there's opportunities to not have to buy modulars or rent modulars, and what if there's an opportunity to do something within the district. And so we can come back to that, but we do think there may be an opportunity to do that. And if that's the case, if we could put that money back into the building, that money is now reimbursable. And so the first two show you with modulars, and then the next two, which are renos, show without it. And so when you get to the very bottom line, when you take the total project cost, you take off what the MSBA is going to reimburse you, and then you take the ineligible cost, that's ultimately what the city is going to be left with in terms of a cost. And so our range is 11 million to roughly 13 million. That's city share for all of these options. And so I know that this is kind of a lot, so I think it's important to kind of remind you where the numbers are. Now we're going to walk you through, okay, what's in each of these options, just so everybody understands that, and then we're going to come back to this sheet. So with that, why don't we go to the site slide?
So we're going to turn this over to Vivian. I don't see all the people, but you got it, Vivian? There you go.
Yes. All right. So what we want to do is just walk you through some of the options and what the scope is included for each of these options. We start with the site. The site improvements proposed are the same for the repairs option as well as for the renovation, the R1 option. They basically address all of the accessibility issues. So if we yeah, thank you. So what we want to do is provide an accessible path to the school from the neighborhood. So that means repair and replacement of curbing and providing handicap curb cuts and the adjustment of some of the slopes to make sure that the path from the neighborhood is accessible to the school. We're also looking at where the handicap parking is. Currently, it's located as a few parallel parking spaces in front of the school. So we're proposing to move them into the parking lot and redo part of that parking lot to provide real workable, accessible parking spaces. Also to the rear of the school, we are proposing to repave that whole play area. It has some issues with divots and sinking of bituminous, so we want to make sure that's safe for the kids. We're also paving we're putting what's called a poured in place rubber play surface beneath the play structure area. So that would provide accessibility to that play area. And then finally to the way north, that pathway will also be regrading and paving to make it accessible from the neighborhood. Okay. So where we left off at PDP is we looked at several HVAC systems, and some of them relied on bringing gas in, and some were electric only. So as we have been working at looking at the options for a preferred schematic, as we work towards a preferred schematic, we looked at what might make sense for this building. Univentilators is what is being carried in the repairs only option. But as we look to maintaining this building for the next 25, 30 years, we are looking for efficiency and longevity and really what works best for educational purposes, right? So univentilators are quite noisy and really not ideal. But for the repairs option, when if we have a very limited budget, we're swapping one for one. However, if we look at what we can do without bringing in gas, so we can maintain the existing electric system, the VRF system, which is right in the middle there, seems to make sense. So what that system does is it allows us to maintain the building as all electric. It's efficient. When we were looking at it, we also were looking at what would potentially help us achieve the lead points for MSBA, and the VRF system would at least lead us there or get us close. We knew that the Univent system would not. The other systems require gas. So again, as we're looking at how to best use the money that the city has to spend for this project, we really want to be efficient with how we're spending that money. So Christina, if you can go to the next slide. So based on that, the VRF system gives us full air conditioning for the school. The system also, again, it's all electric, so we don't need to spend the money to bring gas into the school. The site work is limited then. We don't need to dig it up, trench, and do all that work to bring the gas line in. And again, this is fairly cost efficient. It actually is a little less money than a Univent system with a tagged on AC system. Also, the first cost is efficient, cost effective, and as is the operating costs. And finally, really, it works well in classrooms. We've installed this in the LCP project in Hastings. It's a pre-K program, and it's a great system. Next. So just to remind everyone, the repairs option only is really to get the building up to code regarding accessibility. So that means concentrated renovated areas that would provide accessibility to the stage. We'd replace the elevator. Whatever is non-compliant for door hardware would be replaced. Signage would be added, stairs modified, toilet rooms, and classroom sinks. So there's a good number of areas within the building itself that would need to be upgraded for accessibility. Also included in the repairs project would be envelope replacement. So that would really be the windows. We'd also, as part of that, abate the soffit area that sits horizontally right above the windows. We would replace the doors and then paint and repair some of the exterior fins that are currently painted. Just to note, we're not carrying brick repointing or repairs, nor there's also a cement asbestos fascia that goes around the perimeter of the building that we would not touch. We would repair what is broken, but we would not touch. And then finally, for the repairs project, we would be replacing systems. So again, the HVAC system would be replaced. We would provide fire protection, sprinklers, and new fire alarm system throughout. Power electrical systems would be replaced. That would include lighting as well. and a security system. The data technology would be updated. We would provide cabling where needed and new clocks and PA systems. We would also, I know this sounds really awful, but just we would carry painting for about 50% of the building, the areas that are really affected by our renovations. And then finally, we would replace all of the acoustical ceilings, because in doing all of the systems work, we really do need to take those ceilings down, put them back up, and it really is just not efficient to put back the existing ceilings. Next. So with the repairs project, if we added air conditioning, I think one of the options that are on Mike's summary is merely just adding the VRF system. So this repairs with AC assumes the VRF system. That all other scope of work is the same as the repairs. Okay, next. When we left off in December, we had an option R1, a renovation option that included a series of proposed architectural enhancements and upgrades, as well as educational improvements. We've since then met with the executive group to talk about some of the priorities for education, as well as what we would recommend to really, again, spend the city's dollars wisely to make sure that, you know, while we have this shot at it, we're going to do the most we can with those dollars. So we've adjusted the R1 option, and you'll see the list of improvements down below. We have an R1 and an R1 plus. So apologize if it's confusing, but we'll try to explain. The R1 really is if we are able to take that $1.9 million for modulars and put it into the construction budget, making, again, so much, all of that eligible for reimbursement, it could buy us more for the building improvements. So this listing, everything except what's bolded would be included in the R1 option. So in terms of the building improvements architecturally, we would paint the remainder of the interiors. We would abate the what's left of the vinyl asbestos flooring. We would install new VCT flooring throughout. And then educationally, we've carried an allowance to do some renovations within each classroom, which would allow for us to create some pockets of space within each classroom for calming, for flexibility, for small group use. Also, we have an opportunity to replace the storage area with something a little bit more efficient. We would replace chalkboards and marker boards with new marker boards and tack boards. We're also proposing to install a new speech reinforcement system, which allows teachers within the classrooms, they wear a lanyard, and they can basically teach and speak as if they're having a conversation without having to really project, because the lanyard projects through a speaker system. It also connects to children who have hearing impairments, so they could dial into different what is the bandwidth. So in any case, it really would improve the educational qualities of the school. Also, within our project budget, we carry, MSBA allows us to carry a budget for each student for technology upgrades, as well as FF&E. So that's all included in the R1 option. Also, when we met with the executive working group, and we also agree that it's so important to make sure what we do enhances the security of the building. So that item G, which is what we're calling the core relocation, takes the admin core, which is right now centered in the building, and moves it forward towards the parking lot. And that just allows the eyes on the door, the ability to secure the building and make sure folks are stopped at the door until they're checked in, and there would be a couple of different checkpoints. But this is an improvement that really we're looking at getting the most bang for the buck. And while we're doing the improvements for HVAC and for air conditioning, we have to redo the structure within that admin core area to support rooftop equipment. So while we're doing that, it really does make sense to look at that core and see what else we can do to it. So by moving the admin core and the nurses core forward, we can create a larger media center library that would allow for a digital specialist and more programs. Again, project-based learning can happen here. It just provides a more flexible space for programs. So one item that we did not include previously that we really feel strongly should be considered also are some kitchen repairs. This is not included in the R1, but when we looked at what else would we really recommend, those are the items that are bolded. This is the R1 plus. And again, we'll go through the budget at the end so you could see what the difference is. So the items that are bolded are in addition to the R1 scope. And that would be to replace the kitchen floor and also limited replacement of the equipment. The coolers really do need to be replaced at some point soon. So if it's not done as part of this project, it should be considered in the near future. And then if we go back to the building improvements, we would replace the balance of the door hardware there. And these already are accessible hardware, but this would allow us to have all the hardware match. The keying system, I don't think there would be an issue because we would still work within the district's keying system, but it just makes sense because the accessible hardware that's there now are pretty old. We would also then carry some dollars to replace the asbestos fascia that I had discussed that walks around the perimeter of the building. And it also provides a budget to replace some of the interior doors and the frames within the corridors. Are there any questions regarding these options? No? Okay. Let's see. Next. All right. So just to summarize then, the benefits of a renovation option versus just a repairs option is that we have the ability to enhance building security. We have then the ability to accommodate the district-wide programs such as digital literacy, again, enhancing the media center for this program and other small group and project-based learning programs. We also can then maintain or enhance school-specific programs and then support social emotional learning and maximize or provide additional storage space within the school itself. Next.
Vivian, if I could just add, these, if you just go back one slide, at the very beginning, if everyone can recall, we did outline what was important and the priorities of the district as it relates to both the mechanical equipment and then also for improvements within the facility. So we're just circling back and demonstrating we've been able to achieve quite a few of these priorities.
Thanks, Donna. All right, next. So this summarizes the options that we just went through. Again, with the total estimated budget, construction costs, and then the city share. Again, I'm not sure if this slide was updated since we upped the.
No, it isn't. Just sorry about that. So actually the code is 11,064,000 and the
You can just go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go to the next slide.
There you go.
Yeah.
So again, we place this slide here again just because to remind folks where we are. the estimated city share is somewhere in the range between 11 million and 13 million, yeah, with R1. We are, as Mike said, looking at how we might be able to achieve the additional 2% of the green reimbursement from the MSBA. Our preliminary discussions with our green consultant, our lead consultant, is that we're really close, but we're not quite there yet. It requires a little bit more study for the efficiencies for the HVAC system, as well as the building envelope. So as a renovation project, it's hard because we're not gonna replace all of the exterior walls or the roof, but we're gonna do whatever we can to get very close to try to achieve the 2%.
So just to kind of recap, if you look at the city share, you can see if we just remain focused on the repairs with air conditioning, it's approximately a $12.4 million cost to the city, where if we can achieve the 2% reimbursement, it's actually pretty close to the same, and you can see how much more benefit the city will get. So we can pause, but our goal right now is to refine our information, and what we will be doing is requesting, we'll have another meeting on the 4th, and then prior to submitting to MSBA, we will need to select a quote unquote option. It could be a repair option with a range of dollar value, it could be a renovation option with a range. We don't need to get into all of the specifics as it relates to the exact scope of work. But we do need to let MSBA know which direction we want to go, what our preferred solution is. And then once it's approved by MSBA during schematic design, we can refine all of the options and considerations and manage the budget as we have actual drawings and move forward.
Yeah, and we'll give everybody an opportunity to perhaps discuss the options here, but as Donna said, basically two major things need to happen in the next couple of weeks here. Number one, we need to validate our assumptions on the reimbursement points, which we're actively doing. Number two, swing space. I think it's something that we've been talking about from day one.
I think Josh is here. Josh, did you want to jump in?
Thank you. And this is a great presentation. And just as we look at this slide, I think it's important to look at in the first two columns, we see these costs include modulars. And then in the last three columns, you're seeing a cost with no modulars. So originally, when we talked about this, we said that, we're very tight in the district and there was really no opportunity for swing space, which is what Mike was just alluding to. And then that impacts the reimbursement. So I think in the first two columns, you see the reimbursement for the renovation is 3%. And then if there are no modulars, the reimbursement goes up to 4.5%. And I know Donna and Mike can talk a little bit more about that. So I think these R1 and R1 with AC, these additional models that you see with the additional benefits, that would be if we removed the modulars and identified places in the district for swing space. So if those are the types of options that people would want to go with, we would need to look at swing space in the district. And if this group wants me to work with my team on the feasibility, we can definitely do that. If you see the benefit in those last three columns, we can really look into that. It would be a little bit of a lift, but I think that if the value is there, and I think some of the benefits in the educational programming and the reimbursement, which the group could talk about, I'm certainly willing to do that, and we can bring that back at a future meeting about what the impact of finding that swing space within the district that would be at no cost to the project. Mike, I don't know if I didn't want to cut you off.
No, that's exactly perfect. Yeah, I was just wanted to say, as we're making these decisions with the executive working group, it's, just understanding that, 1.9 million, is it in or is it out? And if there is an opportunity to, put that into the building, that obviously is a win-win. And if you look at the reimbursements, when you're at 60%, that's that's huge for the city. And so over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be working with the executive working group. We're going to come back and see you on February 4th, I believe we said. And again, this meeting after that on the 18th is when we are going to have to vote to choose one of these options. So let me just pause right there and ask the committee if anybody has any questions or comments on any of these particular options that we've discussed today.
If I could jump in, I know there's been discussion about whether or not any electric option will fly with the MSBA with regards to efficiency standards. Is it the sense of the team that the VRF option that was presented today will not be objected to at the MSBA?
Yeah, Dan, thanks for bringing that up. Actually, more and more communities are going all electric to achieve a net zero or net zero ready building, and MSBA fully supports it. They don't have a preference one way or the other as long as it meets all of the code requirements. And then if you are going for the sustainable or green points, we just have to meet their minimum requirements, which is 20% above code.
Okay. Next question on the HVAC system. Is it full building a BAC system, or is it controlled within each individual classroom or space?
It would be a full BAC system, Dan.
And those costs are included in your proposed budgets?
Yes. And just to be clear, I think that within each classroom, there would be thermostats, but there's usually a limit, right, as to,
right.
Because there's a lead requirement too for controllability of your environment. So, but yes, it could tie back into it would tie back into the city's system, whatever we have for the Higgins, right? It could be an extension also and tie into that.
Not a standalone?
Well, it can stand alone, but what we typically do is cities or towns that have a city or town-wide system, we design the system so that it could link directly back into. So,
well, that's a call Jim Hafey can make as to whether or not it's standalone or he wants to upgrade the Higgins as a base system. But we had always thought that the Higgins was a standalone system, at least for building automation control. So that's going to be a Jim Hafey call as to whether or not it's going to stand alone or be a tied-in system network, city school system wide.
Yeah, and that's one of the items we're going to be talking about with Jim today. And so, yeah, it would be a standalone system with a capacity to tie into a city network.
Yeah.
Okay, and just so you know that the system at Higgins still has glitches, and it is called HAL. The computer system has its own mind. So when I'm taking my vote, I want to hear what Jim has to say, but that's going to be in the back of my head.
Yeah, Beth, thanks for bringing that up. I don't know if we were aware of it, but it would certainly be good to get some feedback from Jim after this when we have a conversation. So if there's any kind of tweaking or modifications that we can assist with for the Higgins, we're happy to do that as well.
Okay. Thank you.
HAL, huh?
HAL.
Okay.
Bev, I have a couple questions. This is Pete McGinn.
Sure, Pete, go ahead.
Thank you. So the first one would be to Mike, probably. Do you think we'll know by February 4th, based on the involvement from the green consultants, if we're going to be able to achieve that 2%?
I believe the answer is yes. Donna, correct me if I'm wrong.
It's still ongoing, and I think, again, this is during study, and it's a little challenging, again, as Vivian said, because it's not even a renovation addition or new construction. So we really have to look under the hood as much as possible while not having any real drawings done. So we're going to do our best. They can't run an energy model because we don't have any drawings. We don't have any real information. So we're spending our time focusing on what we can achieve with the VRF system and what attributes of the VRF system would be required to see if we can achieve that. But our goal is to hopefully be able to come back and say, yes, we're feeling good about it. We won't know for sure until we get into schematic design.
Thank you. Dr. Vandala, regarding your comments about the swing space, is there anything in the budget summary with any costs associated with swing space? Or is this being assumed as a zero cost alternative?
So we would look at this as a zero cost. We would have to do a little bit of a feasibility of that and see if it adds transportation costs and what it does as far as HR and staffing. But we would try to look at it as a net zero, as something that would be within the appropriation that we would do within our budget, where it would then free up money here, which would be then reimbursable costs. So I think you'd be looking at, if you went with one of the last three columns, you'd be looking at taking the $1.9 million of modules and maybe getting up to $2.5 or $3 million worth of costs after the reimbursement. So there is some benefit in it if we want to explore that, and I can certainly bring that to the next meeting if this group wants me to explore the swing space options more in depth.
Thank you. So in terms of the last three columns there, I know that we've got 1.9 associated with the modulars that's not in those three columns. What is captured in those three columns? What are the big nuts in those three columns for ineligible costs?
For ineligible, let me get my sheet open here.
Can you bring up the expanded sheet? That might be helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know if Christina can do that.
Yeah. All right, let me try this. Screen share. Screen 2. Okay. So can everybody see my screen, the Excel sheet?
No.
Oh, how about now?
Almost.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is the sort of expanded version of that sheet. And so what you saw in the presentation was the rolled up. And so when we're looking at ineligible costs, there's a couple different categories. And so MSBA has a standard cap on construction costs at $333 per square foot. And so based on our construction cost, we're over that. Okay, this is our cost per square foot, and so we apply that as an eligible cost. So that's what this column is here, Pete. And then down below, ineligible contingency, anything over their 2% cap, which we've calculated, is captured here as well. And then vinyl asbestos tile is something that they also do not reimburse for, and so that's what we're carrying for those last three columns. Is that big enough for everybody to see? Let me.
There you go. Mike, just to add to the VCT, they will not pay for the removal of the VCT, but they will pay for the new flooring. So that's just the removal of the VCT.
Understood. Thanks.
Yeah, and Peter, I just also like to add, we have a meeting coming up with the district and Chris Mitchell regarding technology. And because the district has already invested significantly with one-to-one computers and some other technology items thanks to COVID, we're going to continue to explore opportunities to incorporate maybe some other features from that's in the construction budget that maybe we can perhaps bring into the technology budget, which is 100% paid for by MSBA. So there may be opportunities to move some money in different buckets, which would then overall reduce the overall construction cost and the city share.
Well, would that be a discussion of maybe a robust Wi-Fi system versus wired classrooms?
The Wi-Fi is included. We already have that earmarked as you would automatically get that as part of the technology budget. The biggest component, Dan, if you can recall, for Higgins is the one-to-one devices. And because everyone, including teachers and staff, all have new computers, that really opens up an opportunity to, even with only, the small enrollment here, actually we have a little bit of a surplus, but we want to make sure that we have all of the components in the technology budget. We've added the speech reinforcement system as part of the technology budget as one example, because we could afford to do that. So we just want to make sure that we have everything that the building needs, whether it's a network, the Wi-Fi, of course, and switches and all of that, and then all of the teaching devices, whether it's flat panel displays, interactive flat panel displays, or projectors, et cetera. And then from there, we can see where we have a balance. One discussion might be the telephone system. We weren't replacing the entire telephone system. We were just going to add to it. So if that's a desire, then that might change the direction of the tech budget.
Just if you look at the cycle of purchasing, we obtained a lot of the Chromebooks this year during the COVID, but when you look at the total construction timeline, the usual life of these things of the Chromebooks is 3 years. We'll be out of that cycle by the time the building is ready for reoccupancy and full use after construction. So IT should advise as to how many would be off the program by the time, that first opening of school after construction is over.
Right. Again, yep, you're absolutely right. So the question just becomes, from a district perspective, the sustainability of maintaining a one-to-one, district-wide initiative. And if it's not something that
we'll likely still do one-to-one. It's just a question of are some of them coming off useful life and need to be replaced. And this is an opportunity to get somebody to buy them for us again for zip. So that's just the laying that out.
Right.
But you have that budget per student driven in. The same thing with FF&E. I would just on FF&E say it may be that we need to look at what the allowances are these days against prices of furniture. We won't get the deal that we did with the Higgins because we're dealing with a place that's 1/3 the size.
Right.
And as you know, we gave extra money to upgrade the quality of the furnishings in the building, which may have to be considered for this project as well.
Yeah, agreed. And to respond to you, yes, MSBA has not modified or increased their participation. It's still $1,200 per student. So you aren't getting the large purchase based on the number of students. I don't believe that this budget would support full FF&E replacement throughout the school. We would have to focus our targeted needs. Maybe it's going to be classroom furniture and things like that, and the library furniture, so that it supports flexibility and small group instruction. But that is another opportunity, is if we come under in the tech budget, perhaps we can put some of that money into the FF&E budget. So we'll be circling back with all of that as well. And it'll probably be more refined as we get into the schematic design, which is when we're going to have to provide MSBA a detailed analysis of all of the costs before you enter into a project funding agreement. And we'll work, Dan, we appreciate all of your knowledge and experience, so I'm sure you'll be hugely valuable in those conversations.
Does anyone else have some questions or suggestions? You can speak right up. It's hard to see if anybody, you know, has their hand raised. Okay.
Well, so Bev, just one thing. Does this committee feel it's a good idea for Dr. Vandala to explore opportunities within the district to provide swing space for students?
Yes. And Mike, while we're doing that, can you just pull up the enhancements that would be done if we did do this swing, if we did
Sure.
find alternative swing space? I think it was the build out to the front, the safety, the core here in the library. Yeah, so this space here in the middle. Yeah. So right now, this current space where the hand is, that whole thing, it's half blue and half green. That is where the main office is in the principal's office. And so I think what you're seeing is it would be moved to the front, and the nurse's office would be moved to the front of the building. And there would be a little bit more safety and access. We were thinking about within COVID times, the nurse's office being moved to the front with an external door would also be very helpful. And it just expands that library media center and has some more enhancements in terms of teaching space. That is captured. If we have no modulars, that money can be invested in this type of build out. So I think that's the biggest benefit from the educational program that we'd be looking at.
So I have a question, Mike. Given the R1, what do we think the duration of this construction project is, start to finish, uninterrupted?
Yeah, so right now, Jim, we're assuming 24 months, 2 years, without knowing really what the swing space could look like. We're not sure if perhaps one grade could be moved, 2 grades, 3 grades. And so that's why I think the effort that Josh is discussing here is hugely important, because once we know how many students can be displaced, whether in modulars or within the district, then we can have a better sense of phasing and overall duration. So as of right now, we're assuming 2 years. Once we get into the next phase, which is schematic design, once we've picked an option, we are going to try and bring on a construction manager, and they're going to get into more of the details with us before we go to the project scope and budget agreement with the MSBA. But as of right now, 2 years is our estimation.
So really then this isn't eligible for any sort of summer slammer or series of summer slammers, given that it's 2 years. We're a start to finish sort of project.
We're not going to rule out opportunities to maximize the summers. I think the likelihood of doing at least this scope of work, which is on the screen as summer slammers, is very unlikely. If it was a repair only, we would probably have a better opportunity there, but by no means are we locking into 2 years. I think there's definitely opportunity for improvement on that, but that's our assumption as of now. So that, again, the swing space, I think this committee should probably, enable Josh to go ahead and explore that. And I understand that it's going to be a bit of a lift. But again, the opportunities by saving that ineligible money on modulars that you're renting for 2 years, as opposed to putting it into the building and, adding value to the building and getting 60% on the dollar. So that's what I'm asking the committee. Is that something that the committee would like Josh to explore?
I don't think we have a choice at this point. if we're looking at a 2-year continuous project, we had to have a place for these people to go, so.
Right.
Actually,
Jim,
could I ask
sorry.
a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
How many modular classrooms would be needed? Or how much on those first two? What's the,
I think we assumed 8.
Correct.
okay. All right. I'm going to throw something out there. Honestly, I've been holding back on it for a few minutes because I think it's definitely a topic for the executive meeting with the mayor. But Teddy, this one is to you. So it's just a warning of what I'm coming to you with. I don't want to see that kind of money taken away from the possibility of fixing, $2 million additional dollars worth of Welch school, whatever it needs. However, we are planning and hoping for 2 more school projects down the line. One of which is the Center Elementary and then the high school. If that money for portable classrooms is not, if it's looked at in another way, so that it would never take money away from the Welch, which would mean, we'd need to increase the budget by a couple $1 million. However, I'm looking at it as an investment, because if we get if we need those portable classrooms and we use them on the Welch, by the time the Welch is built, hopefully we would be moving towards the center or towards the high school. And either way, we would get a lot of use out of the portable classrooms in the future. So it's just a different way of looking at those. I hate to see us get them. I think swing space is definitely a much better solution all around, but this is an alternative way of looking at that. And, in years past in Peabody, if you got portable classrooms, they were considered an investment. We still use them. They've been around so long, we could name them after someone.
Beth, Mike, do you recall the 1.9? Was that renting them for 2 years? That wasn't purchasing them.
That's rental.
So that's just rental.
Oh, you just blew my whole idea.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Should have shut me off 10 minutes ago.
Well,
Sorry.
no, because that's a really valid point, right? But yeah, I'm sorry.
I mean, you can buy them. That's not what our pricing is based off of. I mean, it's something we could look at, but then obviously there's costs associated with setting them up, getting electricity to them. They have to have bathrooms, and then if you're going to use those on another project, you got to demobilize them. You know what I mean? There's a lot of variables that go along with that.
I think as well, for the benefit of this project, if we have to add 6 to 8 modular classrooms, it really limits the laydown and construction space and a separation of the school and construction use. Our goal is to not utilize the park as much as we possibly can, or the field. So this space really would be beneficial to the contractor as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike, are you looking for a motion or some sort of just general authority to Josh to look at swing space? Because I mean, I think that it sounds like we're all in favor of at least exploring that. I mean, I think it's a very real possibility that we find swing space within existing buildings in the school department. I don't think it's going to be that difficult to find the space with the current enrollment that we have in certain buildings. I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we need to have a vote. I know that, I'm just an extension of your team here, and I'm not going to I can't be the one to tell Josh to spend a bunch of time exploring something. So I think ultimately what we were looking for was consensus from the committee that yes, it does make sense to explore. It is going to be a bit of a lift, as Dr. Vandala said. And so we're just looking for acknowledgement from the committee that makes sense to do, because we believe it does.
Yeah, I can tell you, and I've been jumping in and out of this meeting. I apologize. I don't know if it's been discussed during what Josh presented, but I'm chairing a redistricting committee right now, and it is one of the things that's on our radar. One of the things we're looking at as we look at space around the district is swing space for this project. I mean, I'm extremely concerned as this project takes off, I mean, there's asbestos in this building, right? There are carcinogens in this building that are going to be, I don't know the construction term that's used, but they're going to be become airborne at some point. When windows are taken out and unit ventilators are taken out and ceiling tiles and things like that. I mean, the more staff and children we get out of this building for the duration of this project, I think the better off we all are.
Agreed.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. And I think we're all saying that even with the repair project, that's why we have the modular classrooms in there, is that to do the work efficiently and in sequence, that we really do need to have certain areas vacated for the safety so that we can block off the construction areas in a meaningful way that would be completely separate for the staff and students that will remain in the building. So I think what I'm hearing is it makes sense to invest the $2 million of the 1.9 back into the project if that's a remote possibility that this school department can swing, no pun intended, that the shift of some of those students and staff into other buildings.
Yeah, I agree. And I just had one question on that schematic, the drawing that showed what that 1.9 was going to buy in terms of moving the principal's office Josh pointed out or Dr. Vandala pointed out the nurse's office to the front left side of that, what looks like kind of bluish. Yeah. And it looks like he mentioned a separate entryway, a separate doorway. Are there also windows? I mean, one of the things that COVID has kind of brought to our attention is ventilation. And that's one of the concerns, not only in this building, but, a few other elementary schools that are built on the same architectural design. Would we get fresh air? Would we get outdoor air into that space?
Yes, I believe it's green. So if the hand cursor moves to the right, maybe an inch, it's this thin green space here. And there are classrooms on that side of the building that have external doors, and there are windows to the outside. So that would be a big consideration into access to the nurse's office and having those those exterior windows.
Great,
thank you. We will also look at some of the other opportunities for the nurses. I know that the pressure in the nurses suite has been modified in certain districts. So, we can look at doing some special features into the nurse's office as it relates to what we've just learned over the last year.
Yeah.
But relocating it, not only does it, continue to provide the adjacency to the administration, but it also provides opportunities for windows, fresh air, and then it's also much larger, so it can support the student population.
Right. And
thank you.
Those are all things they've really needed at the Welch.
Yes.
I have a kitchen related question, and it deals with how you're feeding the children now. Are children being fed? Are they taking their meals in the classrooms?
That would be Josh.
Is that a COVID related thing, Dan, that you're asking? Right now they're doing a grab and go.
So they're not seated in the cafeteria to consume their meal. Is that correct?
This year only. We would expect that we would go back to using the cafeteria next year.
Well, here's an interesting thing to think about. The cafeteria, if they ate in their classrooms, becomes swing space.
That's a good point.
We can explore that as potential swing space. There are some other logistical issues may go into that, but we can definitely explore that.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any thoughts or suggestions they'd like to say?
Yeah, but if we're looking to just understand if there's consensus around Dr. Vandala performing this evaluation of swing space, count me in on that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Does everyone agree with that? It does seem that this is the perfect time to do it in conjunction with the redistricting. The information is being generated now in one respect, and saving close to $2 million to be able to put it into bricks and mortar. Is there anyone that disagrees with that? No, I think. All right, then I will say on behalf of everybody that the consensus is, Josh, if you can look into some swing space in the district and come up with some ideas or suggestions, I think it would be good, and this would be the time to do it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'll look at some multiple options and I'll bring some ideas back to our next meeting.
Very good.
Great. And I apologize, Bev, I have to jump off. I have another meeting, but I'll work on that. And I'm meeting with Danisco and the team tomorrow about technology. So if there's anything additional, I can follow up with them then.
Yes, I'm going to shoot you an email about technology. I have something I wanted to bring
Excellent.
forward.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Bev, if I could just jump in real quick. This is Mayor Betancourt. I just wanted to thank everybody for that terrific presentation. The questions that were asked were right on point. I appreciated all those questions being asked. And I think things are starting to come into focus now. I do want to wait for some additional information I know that's being worked on regarding swing space and regarding the reimbursement points, all very important. But I do think that things are coming into focus. We're just working on some budgeting, planning ahead, because certainly we want to factor in some other projects that we're hoping to do in the years ahead. So all that is coming into focus now. So I just wanted to thank everybody for their continued time and effort on this. I feel like every meeting we have is another step closer. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Mayor Betancourt. We appreciate it. Okay. Let's see. Mike and Christina, I have a question for you.
Yep.
It's regarding the agenda.
Yep.
Are we at the point of the topics not reasonably anticipated?
Yeah, I think if all the questions have been asked and answered, then yes, we would open it up to anything that's come up.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or any topics? I'm going to bring one up. I want to welcome Jen Dort to our meeting. Jen is the newest representative from the Welch. So thank you for coming, Jen. We appreciate it.
Welcome to the team, Jen.
Mm-hmm. All right. I will open this to public comment. I don't see anyone online or no, I don't see anyone. And Josiah, you don't have anyone clamoring to speak to us, do you? Okay. All right. I think we can move on. And actually, you've got the right slide up because the next topic is next meetings. So everyone did receive a copy of this presentation. So you all do have that slide, which will be very helpful. We will definitely get back to you about that. The meeting of February 18th to either confirm that or to change that. So again, please, we'll send out an email today. Just please respond if you have any issue with that February 18th meeting. It's an important vote, and
Yeah.
it'll be an interesting meeting.
We'll send out the meeting invites for our upcoming meetings, and we'll send out that email to Bev to this full committee and just confirm that we'll get a quorum by the 18th.
That would be great. Thank
Approval.
you. Yeah. Okay. All right. Is there anything else?
That's
Dorothea?
I just going back to the community meeting, right? So,
Oh, yes.
so it's going to come up pretty quickly. I think that's like 3 weeks,
You're right. Yeah.
3 weeks. So, or maybe 4. So I don't know if people can look at their calendars as well, and we can kind of hone in on a date and maybe start that whole process again.
Okay. All right. The first meeting was great, so the second one is going to be even better. All right. Is there anything else from anyone?
Mike and Christina, do you want to just stay on the line and continue this into the facilities?
We actually, why don't we hang up? Because I sent out a Microsoft Teams for our next meeting. So,
Okay.
and we're going to make sure Danisco's engineer is also on the line. So
All right.
we'll hang up from here and we'll use our Microsoft Teams invite.
Great. Thank you.
Very good. All right. I guess I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Ed
So
Colbert,
moved.
I'm going to make you make that motion, Ed.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ed. Okay. Do I have a second?
Second,
Who was that?
Jim.
Oh, good, Jim. Thank you. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful week and Happy New Year. And we will see you very soon. Thank you all.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
Thank you.